10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss. I am taping this on the 24th of August. It's a bit late for me. It's just after midnight, and I'm doing it because I'm going to be at work in the morning, so I won't be able to speak to anyone. But I want to go over something that I think is very important, and I want to get this issue out because I've had a lot of people attack me lately. A lot of people coming after me because, oh my God, you're a black Republican. How dare you take on a Democrat? How dare you accuse a Democrat of being ineffective in Congress? How dare you mention that we should expect our representatives to actually represent the people? Now, I think a lot of people would say, what? Hang on. What's this all about? And I want to be very clear. This is about my representative, Anthony Brindisi, in the New York 22nd District. But I think you can say this about many Democrats, many politicians throughout the entire country. That there are people, and some of them are on the right, some are on the left, some are conservatives, Republicans, libertarians, many are Democrats, many are the progressive leaders of tomorrow plot, many of them are Indivisible New York, many of them are Citizen Action or otherwise democratic socialists who are saying you can't pick on my member of Congress, the person who's in office right now, because, you know, they're great. I have feelings about this person. I like this person. And that's the problem. We've taken on a American Idol mentality when it comes to the public, to Congress, to elected officials. That somehow they are great because they got elected. Somehow they're great because they have a political affiliation that's the same as yours. That's stupid. That is patently false. And to attack people, to tell people, that they have the wrong answer, that they don't know what they're talking about, that they're trolls because you're pointing out issues, that's the problem with our system right now. It's not the Electoral College. It's the fact that we don't have term limits. It's the fact that we have politicians who are being supported by the media very much and by constituents who have feelings about this or that member and or elected official and not looking at what are these people doing? Are they effective? Are they effective in a positive manner? Now, you can say that about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You can say that about Rashida Tlaib. You can say that about Ilhan Omar, the entire squad. Really, are they being effective? Are they doing something that's positive? Are they helping their constituents? Seriously, this is the question. And it's not whether I'm black or whether I'm Hispanic or if I happen to be a Republican or a conservative, which all of those things are true. I'm all of those things. But what does that matter? Is the member of Congress actually effective? And that's a question. And I want to ask people that because I've been attacked on this, and I really, really want people to think about it. Because remember what we heard from Stephen Fry.
My real objection is that I don't think political correctness works. I want to get to the Golden Hill, but I don't think that's the way to get there. I believe one of the greatest human failings is to prefer to be right than to be effective.
All right. To be right rather than effective. We've heard this before. It's Joe Biden saying that he believes in truth over facts. That's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 60 Minutes saying that she wants to be morally right rather than factually right. That facts don't matter compared to her feelings. That's a problem. That's a major problem in American politics. And we see people falling in line with this left and right. They want to be right. They want to feel like they are right rather than being factually right, rather than actually helping people, rather than being effective in their job in Congress. They want to feel like they're effective, like they've done something right. And one of the biggest people, well, one of the ones that really affect me is Representative Anthony Brindisi. And I'm going to show you his photo and go over him in just a moment. But I also want you to think about something that's very important. Okay, this is from Real Clear Politics. I highlighted it in another video recently. And it's the interview of Piers Morgan on the Ben Shapiro show. The article was "Populism is Rising Because Liberals Have Become Unbearable." And in that article, there's a couple of things that Piers Morgan says that's very important, I think. Okay? He mentions that he sees himself as a journalist, but populism is rising because liberals have become unbearable. That's the headline a lot of people saw if they paid attention. And he goes on to say, liberals have become utterly, pathetically illiberal, and it's a massive problem. He goes on to say, what's the point of calling yourself a liberal if you don't allow anyone else to have a different view? This snowflake culture that we now operate in, the victimhood culture, that everyone has to think in a certain way, behave in a certain way. Everyone has to have a bleeding heart and tell you 20 things that are wrong with them just to think it's all completely skewed to an environment where everyone is offended by everything and no one is allowed to say a joke. So you can look at the entire video and the entire conversation that Piers Morgan was having. But this is the environment we find ourselves in, especially in states like New York, California, Illinois, Michigan, Baltimore, Maryland. You're hearing this whole thing where you can't confront Elijah Cummings, Representative Elijah Cummings of Maryland, because, well, he's black. How dare you say something about him? He's a black Democrat. And so you can't speak out against him. And the fact that his district has one of the highest rates of murder, black on black crime, poverty in the nation. You can't speak about what's going on in Chicago because those are black people and because they're Democrats predominantly. And you can't talk about black on black crime or the number of shootings that go on there every weekend, which outnumber the mass shootings in America by a magnitude. You can't talk about California and the debt that they have and the fact that illegal immigrants are running ramshod, violating the law. Not all of them, but more than enough. And the same thing here in New York State. And in New York State, where we see some of all of those problems, we have representatives kind of like Anthony Brindisi, an individual who is adamant that he is a great champion of the public, except he's not really. In fact, when I did it, one of the first things I looked at was back in January, and you can see it at the Voss Political Commentary, where I asked Representative Brindisi was denied a committee seat. Was that a sign of ineffectiveness? That was back on January 16th. And I went through how there are unanswered questions. The media was pandering to him. And Mr. Brindisi was facing problems with Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the House, and that he lacked all influence because he was possibly too far to the left. Those are real concerns. Because regardless of whether he's a Democrat or a Republican, whether he's a libertarian or a conservative, Anthony Brindisi is obligated to do the best he can for those in his district. He won by 4,000 votes. It was 49 point something percent versus 50%, 50.1%, 49.9 versus 50.1%. That is not a mandate. That is someone who barely squeaked by with a win, who has to represent both sides, and there is a big division. And we see that in many states, in many districts. Many elected officials have this same lack of mandate, this same demand on them. But what are we seeing from them? We're seeing media that coddle them. We see them get softball questions like on WNBF, like with Keeler in the Morning. But what we're not seeing is that these representatives are stepping up. Instead, they're out there pushing narratives that aren't accurate, that don't reflect the truth of what's really going on. I'll give you a couple examples of what I mean. Back on, and this is Facebook, Representative Anthony Brindisi's page on there, and he's talking about his first 200 days in office. And in those first 200 days, I asked a question. He has the same record as in his first 100 days, where he has 8 bills. And the only thing that's passed is a report. And he's had 2 bills with 10 supporters and the rest single digits. That Democrats are completely ignoring him. Now you say, Mike, well, that's just unfair. How can you prove that? How is that even possibly true? Because I actually look at his record. And in his record, he has 9 bills at this time, and he has exactly 17 Democrats that have supported him. You can look this up yourself on GovTrack, and you can look at each bill. The prognosis in each and every bill, somewhere between 2%, on average, 3% chance of actually being passed, except for the one bill, which was a report that has to be done, which has a 21% chance of ever being passed. A report. And you know what? That's on veterans. Veteran suicide prevention. And you know what? No one supports it. 10 out of 435 members of Congress support that bill. That's it. Veterans don't support his report. And we're looking at every other bill. He doesn't even get 1% of Congress paying attention to what he's doing. That's pretty piss poor. That's not effective. That doesn't help constituents. But he's talking about, in his first 200 days, about how much he's accomplished. There's nothing to cheer about. Anthony Brindisi, you haven't done anything. When less than 1% of your own party is paying attention to what you're doing, when there are freshman members of Congress alongside you who have never served a day in government, and they have well more, 10 times as many people, 20 times as many members of Congress supporting their bills, and you can't get 1% of your own party to support what you're doing, yeah, that's a problem, and you need to be called out for it. And you know what? I look at other things, because that's not just his 200-day message. No, just yesterday on the 23rd, we saw that Anthony Brindisi came out and he's touting the fact, and I wrote about this in I did a podcast on a different article about the Fentanyl Sanctions Act. Well, Anthony, that's not your bill. He says here that this is his bill and that he is as he says very clearly, my bill, the Fentanyl Sanctions Act, will crack down on Chinese drug traffickers and get these illegal drugs off our streets. Well, that would be great if maybe you supported anything to do with a wall and to secure our borders. But more importantly, he also forgets the fact that Bill 24, it's actually 2483. I typoed. It's HR 2483, which is by Max Rose on May 2nd. It's his bill. So we have a representative who's stealing the effort, the work, the name and recognition of other members of Congress and claiming it for himself, obviously to boost his reelection efforts and to make it seem like he's effective at his job, except it's not his. He didn't do it. That's the work of Max Rose. That's another member of Congress, another Democrat at that he's stealing it away from. That's a problem. When we allow members of Congress to essentially plagiarize, to steal the work and credit of other individuals who have done the work, that doesn't benefit anyone. That doesn't help constituents. This is a problem. This is a problem we see in America. He's not the only one, but he is my member of Congress. So yeah, I'm going to highlight that. And you have people who defend that. Well, no, I feel like he's done a great job over the last 200 days. I feel like, this is his bill. It's not. He's lying. That is a lie. When you say it's your work and it's someone else's, and that is demonstrably true because, again, I will show you, this is his record at GovTrack. This is everything he has done, all 9 bills. And not one of them is the fentanyl bill. Not one of them is what he's trying to take credit for. That is a lie. But he's going forward. And even most recently, you have to ask yourself, gee, well, why is he doing all this? Well, what else is he doing? When I see Rep. Anthony Brindisi going to picket lines, he's at picket lines with unions. And I have a very simple question for him. Did the union contribute to your election campaign in the past or currently? If so, you need to publicly disclose that. That is a simple, very easy question. Did you get the money from the union? Are they your contributors that you're out there walking a picket line with them against businesses that are needed in the southern tier? And instead I get told that I'm a troll. I'm a troll is one of the answers that I received. Well, let me ask you, if a Republican were out there and promoting a business, wouldn't one of the first things that any Democrat would ask, are you getting paid by them? Are you in their pocket? I hear that all the time. Well, Republicans only support big oil because they get donations from them. So getting donations from unions, which are huge, that's not the same thing. That's a pass. You get to excuse that. Because if you're getting it from business as a Republican, well, that's corruption. But if you're getting it from a union as a Democrat, that's not equally as corrupt. That's not equally as biased. That's still not buying a representative. And I had to look into this. Like, how much money is this we're talking about? And then I looked over at Anthony Brindisi's money. And this comes from opensecrets.org. And what do I see? He raised $878,000 and he spent some of it, but he has $770,000 now left. And when you look at those numbers a little more carefully, you find out that Anthony Brindisi is number 3 of all the members of the House. He is number 3 in receiving money from a union, from unions, from building trade unions. And you have to wonder, is that the same thing? That trade union that he's happily walking the picket line for, that he's taking on other businesses for, is that because he got paid $32,000? Because he's the 3rd most contributed member of the unions? Is that why he's doing it? Because they bought him? And even though he's ineffective, that having his name there somehow will help that union. That will bolster them because they bought him. That's the question that has to be asked. And when you ask that question, you get called a troll. When you ask a question about why are you taking credit for someone else's work, you get told, well, you don't understand what's going on. When you ask a question about how can you celebrate having a 200-day record with 0 achievements, and you're touting that as a great accomplishment, and when you're asked, how does that help any of your constituents? Oh, no, you're just biased. You don't know what you're talking about. See, this is the conversation we need to have in America because these are serious, honest questions. They're going to whether or not a member of Congress is effective. This is going to whether or not a member of Congress is being honest with his constituents, that he is benefiting his constituents, which is the obligation of the job, that he is actually talking to his constituents, those who voted for him and those who did not, which he represents both sides. And when you're not hearing that and they're not getting those answers, that's a deception, in my opinion. That is someone who is ineffective. That is someone who is hiding the reality and hoping that people will only look at the headlines and look at the bright, cheerful pictures And when they see those pictures, they're going to say, well, that's good enough. I saw the headline. I saw the picture. He must be doing a job that's really good. I looked at the picture. I see he's surrounded by people. He must be doing his job. I looked at the picture. I see that he's out there with the public. He must be doing his job. Except the answer is, no, he's not. He's not getting the job done. I'll look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, her Green New Deal. Not a single Democrat voted for it. Not a single Democrat voted for it. Is she doing her job? No, she's not. If you believe in the eco-fanaticism of global warming, she's not helping advance it. No one supports it. When you listen to Andrew Yang at 2%, is he really advancing the movement towards a basic income? No, he's not. No one's supporting it. So you have to ask yourself, when you raise these questions, is it because I'm black? Is it because, which would be a racist statement. If I was a Democrat and you asked me, well, you only support, if I was a Democrat and I actually supported Anthony Brindisi, which I don't, then if someone said, well, why do you support him? Wouldn't that be racist according to Democrats? So how is it not racist when I'm supporting Republican ideals? How is it when you look at this and you hear people say, well, you're a troll because you're asking a question. But if I ask that same question of a Republican, then I'm just a honest, true American. When I say that, I believe that the support of open borders or single-payer healthcare, which have been proven across the world to show that they are not effective and they don't benefit the people that have them, well, then I'm just some kind of evil, vile, heartless creature. Except if I took the opposite position, then I'm a great person. In the feelings of the snowflakes that Piers Morgan is referring to the far left, the progressive leaders of tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT, the citizen actions of the world, the far fringe left. That's not the way America is supposed to be. That's not the way our politics is supposed to go. We should do better. Yes, we should ask questions of people like Anthony Brindisi, who promises to be able to take questions and to do an interview for 3 years and never comes through. A person who ducks every question and every message that gets to his staff and has happened to him in person. No, I think that's wrong. A person who is actively lying to the public, as I have shown. A person who is questionably taking money from unions to promote their issues. A person who is actively out there stealing the credit for work done by others. And that's my congressman. But let me ask you, does your congressman do it? I don't care if they're Republican, Libertarian, conservative, a progressive, a democratic socialist, or just a plain old moderate Democrat. Are they doing it? Are you sure? Did you look at the headline? Did you look at the bright pictures? Or did you actually look at the record? Did you actually see what they're doing? What they have actually accomplished? Because too often right now, we're looking at social media, we're listening to memes, and yes, even podcasts like mine, and we're saying, well, that's okay. I don't need to see the facts. I'm sorry, we do. And we need to hold these people accountable, and we need to hold them to term limits. And when they're not effective, when they are lying, when they are questionably taking money from sources just to promote those issues of those sources, we should hold them accountable and not reelect them. Not because Anthony Brindisi is a Democrat. I've known Anthony Brindisi for 7 years now. I've done interviews with him in the past. Do we agree? No. Do I attack everything he does? No. Because some of the things he's trying to do, I think are good ideas, like taking care of veterans. But that doesn't mean he's effective. That doesn't mean that he is the best person to do that, because no one is paying attention to what he is doing in Congress. He is not helping his constituents, and that means he's not helping those veterans. He's not helping illegal aliens, which I think is a good thing, but he's not helping lower taxes, build businesses, help people get homes. None of what he's doing is a benefit. And I have to ask you, is your congressman in the same position? Imagine if 20 years ago someone said, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, someone went to Elijah Cummings and said, guess what? Baltimore is in trouble. It's in poverty. There is rampant crime. Mr. Cummings, you are not doing your job. What if someone said that to him and said, you should not be reelected unless that improves? Do you think he might have improved it, might have helped it move forward? Or rather than just going, well, I'm black, you can't say that. What about Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco, which is filled with human feces and homelessness, a capital of homelessness? While she's busy trying to take care of illegal aliens, her own constituents are living in tents and are defecating on the streets. What if we said 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Nancy, you're not doing your job. Your people are not being taken care of. Are we better off just saying, no, you can't say that because she's a woman, because she's a Democrat. You can't say that to her. You can't ask that question. You can't hold her accountable. She shouldn't have term limits. She should stay in there as long as she wants because she's a member of Congress and I like her. Because you like Elijah Cummings, because you like Anthony Brindisi. Does that make any of them actually responsible? Does that make any of them actually effective? Is that making the lives of the people who are living in the tents, who are defecating on the streets, who are living in cities of violence, who are dying because of just gang-on-gang violence? People who are having to try and get jobs as Anthony Brindisi is trying to close down businesses and raise their taxes and lying to the public. Are these the things that are going to help you? I don't think so. So yeah, I'm using Anthony Brindisi as the example here. He is the example. And he is the example of what I believe that Piers Morgan is talking about. That's right. I think he's exactly that. He is the liberal that is just illiberal. He is one of the, as he says, and I want to quote him here, he's a liberal that has become unbearable. That he is a liberal who has become utterly, pathetically illiberal, and it is a massive problem. And we need to call that out. We need to call that out, not because Piers Morgan is the best person in the world or that I agree with him, but because the core answer of what he's saying is we need to watch our members of Congress, and we can't be sidelined by being called a troll or being called a racist or being called a white nationalist. Yes, I get called I'm a white nationalist somehow because I don't agree with the feelings of a snowflake. I'm sorry. That doesn't change the fact that the questions that are being asked need to be answered. And when someone is ineffective, they need to be removed.